It would seem like these actors' careers were over, but fate would have another idea, and none were more successful than Robert Downey Jr. At the age of 5, he starred in his first movie Pound, directed by his father, who would also introduce him to drugs at age 6, and by age 8 they were doing drugs together because when my dad and I would do drugs together, it was like him trying to express his love for me in the only way he knew how. After settling in New York, he was cast as a part of the new SNL, but was quickly replaced, and the Rolling Stone named Downey the worst SNL cast member in its entire run, stating that the Downey Fill sums up everything that makes SNL great. In 1987, Downey starred in Less Than Zero, playing a drug-addicted boy whose life rapidly spirals out of control, though Downey said that for him, the role was like the ghost of Christmas Future, as his drug habit was an exaggeration of the character in real life. Then working on a few more films, working alongside Mel Gibson, who would become important later on, he then struck gold appearing in the biopic Chaplin in 1992, which garnered him a BAFTA for Best Actor, but the momentum would come to a halt as he was arrested in 1996 for possession of heroin, crack cocaine, and an unloaded .357 Magnum while speeding down Sunset Boulevard, and after being put on parole a month later, he wandered into a neighbor's house and fell asleep in one of their beds, with it being known as the Goldilocks incident. Despite no charges being filed, Downey would relapse once again, alongside missing a court-ordered drug test, causing him to be sentenced to 3 years in the California Substance Abuse Treatment Facility and state prison. He then explained to a judge in 1999, "It's like I've got a shotgun in my mouth and I've got my finger on the trigger and I like the taste of gunmetal." After just 1 year, he was released after a judge unexpectedly stated that his collective time spent in incarceration facilities had qualified him for an early release. Ignoring the recent arrest and potential liability of Downey, the Ally McBeal Show decided to take him on anyway, and it would seem to be a successful move as Downey would have revitalized the show and even won a Golden Globe for the role as well as a Primetime Emmy Award nomination. But Downey wasn't satisfied with his work, calling it overrated, and it was my lowest point in terms of addictions. At that point, I didn't give a fuck whether I ever acted again. And in Thanksgiving in 2000, his room was raided by the police, finding Valium, cocaine, and was subsequently arrested once again. After getting parole, he was found wandering barefoot in Culver City and was arrested on the suspicion of being under the influence, but despite testing positive, was released with no charges. But the Ally McBeal executives would drop him anyway, leaving Downey homeless, too much of an insurance liability to be employed, and on the verge of bankruptcy, effectively retiring him. But Downey wouldn't go down without a fight and started taking steps to recovery.
It's not that difficult to overcome these seemingly ghastly problems. What's hard is to decide.
And after a 2-year hiatus, he would return in The Singing Detective, only made possible as close friend Mel Gibson would pay for Downey's insurance bond himself, allowing him to star in the film. 4 years later, Downey would star in his breakthrough role Iron Man.
I am Iron Man.
Which was an immediate global success, grossing $585 million, then starring in 2 more sequels, as well as Tropic Thunder, The Zodiac, Sherlock Holmes, Due Date, and an abundance of MCU films, as well as many more, racking up a total box office of $14.4 billion and being the 3rd highest grossing of all time. And whilst Downey was known for his many MCU roles, Macaulay Culkin was known for just one. Home Alone premiered in 1990, grossing $476 million and being the highest grossing comedy film of its time, and was the highest grossing Christmas film for 28 years until the 2018 Grinch. Culkin was nominated for a Golden Globe and won an American Comedy Award and a Young Artist Award. From the success, he'd host Saturday Night Live and star in Michael Jackson's Black or White music video, with his friendship extending to his personal life, becoming close friends with Culkin. And in Michael Jackson's 2005 trial, Culkin testified that he'd slept in the same bed as Jackson, but nothing ever happened, calling the allegations absolutely ridiculous.
Nothing happened. You slept in the same bedroom as him. It's like, I don't think you understand. Michael Jackson's bedroom is 2 stories.
In 1992, Culkin was paid $4.5 million to perform in the next iteration of the Home Alone franchise, compared to his original $110,000 payment for the first film. After these initial successes, he'd do another handful of films before announcing his retirement in 1994, wanting a normal life, and wouldn't make his return until 2003 with Party Monster. But not long after returning to the big screen, Culkin was arrested for possession of marijuana and 2 controlled substances and was released on a $4,000 bail, receiving 3 one-year suspended prison sentences. But this wouldn't stop him from being named second on VH1's list of 100 greatest child stars in the next year, and after a few small roles, he'd broaden his career, appearing in a UK Aviva car insurance ad and starting his own band, the Pizza Underground. but they would be booed off stage and cancel the remaining tour, claiming it had nothing to do with them being booed off the stage, and split the band up a few years later. In 2018, Culkin would revitalize his role as Kevin McAllister in a Google Assistant ad recreating scenes from the original movie.
What do I owe you?
Looks like you paid online.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Okay, cool.
And 23 years after rising to success, he'd receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, cementing him in history forever. And whilst Macaulay Culkin was training to be an actor his whole life, Cameron Diaz wasn't even an actress when she was taken on for her first role in The Mask in 1994. With no previous acting experience, the film blew her up overnight, marking the start of a long acting career, and one reason people couldn't stop talking about her was her attractive appearance. With Variety noting after a performance in Feeling, Minnesota, that sadly, with the notable exception of the attractive Diaz, who's well cast as a sexual aggressor and romantic manipulator, there are no exciting performances in the film. However, her acting talent was the highlight of her performances, and this really shows in Vanilla Sky, where she was nominated for a Golden Globe, SAG Award, Critics' Choice Award, and an American Film Institute Award, with the San Francisco Chronicle stating, "Most impressive is Cameron Diaz, whose Fatal Attraction stalker is both heartbreaking and terrifying." But throughout her career, she was never nominated for an Academy Award, with IndieWire naming her one of the greatest actors never to have received an Academy Award nomination in 2016. After this, Diaz would star in the first Shrek film, grossing $484 million, paving the way for another 3 films with a total box office of nearly $3 billion. Therefore, it's no surprise in 2010 Forbes ranked Diaz as one of the richest female celebrities, ranking her number 60 among the wealthiest 100, and 1 year later CEO World magazine listed her as one of the top accomplished women entertainers. She'd become so successful it would seem like she would never stop, with nearly all of her films grossing $100 million or more. Starring alongside some of the biggest names in Hollywood, such as Tom Cruise, Jason Segel, Jennifer Aniston, Seth Rogen, Christoph Waltz, Drew Barrymore, and so many more you couldn't even count. As well as her combined films exceeding $3.5 billion, with her personal net worth reaching $140 million. After all her years of success, and considering she's been praised for her natural beauty and ability to maintain a youthful look without relying on extensive cosmetic procedures, it makes it no surprise she'd release her own book, co-written by Sandra Bark, titled The Body Book: Feed, Move, Understand and Love Your Amazing Body, reaching number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list in March 2014. The same year, Diaz retired from acting as she wanted to focus on her family, marrying good Charlotte guitarist Benji Madden later that year. And all of this free time allowed her to make a second book by mid-2016 titled The Longevity Book: The Science of Aging, the Biology of Strength, and the Privilege of Time. And after an 11-year hiatus from the big screen, she was back with the perfectly titled Back in Action, being viewed 46 million times within the first 3 days of being on Netflix. And it would appear as if she had never left, already planning to appear in the Apple original film Outcome and reprising her role as Fiona in Shrek 5. Although Cameron Diaz had hit success with her first acting role, Brendan Fraser had already been acting for 6 years before his major box office success, George in the Jungle, making $174 million at the box office, and would lead into many more successes, including The Mummy, its 2 sequels, as well as Journey to the Center of the Earth and Looney Tunes Back in Action. But the stress he experienced from a succession of events, including his divorce, his health problems, the death of his mother, and allegedly being assaulted by Philip Burke, plunged Fraser into a major depression that led to a break in his career, lasting between 2013 and 2016. Voicing his allegation was one reason he may have been blacklisted. The phone does stop ringing in your career, and you start to ask yourself why. There's many reasons, but was this one of them? I think it was. But after only 3 years, he would make his return, with The Whale receiving a 6-minute standing ovation and was highly praised, subsequently winning him an Oscar for Best Actor.
The Oscar goes to Brendan Fraser.
But how would this affect his career trajectory? Well, he'd then land a subsequent 2 roles as of now. Although Fraser would effectively retire for 3 years, Jonathan Kwan wouldn't act for 20 years, after starring in the massively popular Indiana Jones alongside Harrison Ford, and quickly followed the role with the popular Goonies just 1 year later, saying, "It was one of the happiest times of my life. After not being able to find new work, he used the skills he'd gained from Indiana Jones to help choreograph fight scenes in films like X-Men and worked on several projects behind the scenes. But after not appearing in front of the camera for 2 decades, he was inspired by the film Crazy Rich Asians, which led him to be cast in the film Everything Everywhere All at Once, which after its release became the most awarded film of all time, winning 158 awards, with Kwon receiving a Golden Globe, Screen Actors Guild Award and an Oscar for his performance, and Kwon has continued to appear on the big screen, starring in Loki series as well as Kung Fu Panda, Love Hurts and The Electric State, now appearing as though his career is back on track.